Hello people, welcome back to a brand new video on ACC, and this time I'm going to show you a crazy race I had a few weeks back in the first round of the British GT Esports Series at Alton Park. So for this one it was a very simple format, 15 minutes qualifying followed by a 60-minute race with one mandatory pit stop, and it's multi-class, so GT3s and GT4s were on the track at the same time, just like in real life. Anyway though, let's see what we could go and muster in quali. Now like all these things, I think the best way to show you how quali went was to show you my best lap. So let's get into it. Into turn 1, into third gear, late apex. You can use a bit of the runoff but not all of it, so you've got to be careful not to invalidate your lap time. Going into turn 2 and 3, very tricky section. To be honest, I think it's probably the most difficult corner on the track, and we managed to meet the apex quite well. We're using TC0 on some of the exits just to minimise the TC getting in the way. I feel like in this car, on this game, it's quite useful. Through Island Bend, we clipped the curb on the inside, which isn't ideal, but still carried good speed into second gear for the hairpin. You can hear the car bottoming out there. The McLaren around this track is not strong at all because it's too stiff, it's too low, and going into the first chicane, down to first gear, late apex, avoid all the curbs apart from that one on the exit. You can't take the curves in this car, and you look at other cars like the BMW, and you'll see in the race they can absolutely monster the curbs. So we're braking it around the 100-metre board there, down to second, and just hugging it nice and tight through the whole chicane. Get good rotation for the final bit to get on the power earlier. Avoid the curb on the exit because it does suck you onto the grass. Up to Druids, and I mean this corner, the McLaren's pretty strong through here because it's nice and quick and fairly flat. So down to third gear, TC0. Obviously, you know, I wouldn't be doing that in real life. That would be ludicrous, but you can do it in the game and get away with it. Down into the final corner, brake at the 100-metre board, down to second, late apex, avoid the curb on the inside. A good straight exit, TC0, shortest run to the line, and across the line, you will see it's good enough for second on the grid, a 132.628. Still over half a second off pole, Angus Fender in a BMW M6 GT3 for Century Motorsports. So insane gap, you know, between first and second, and when I saw that I was in shock, but I thought that's game over, that's race over, let's settle for second. No way can I compete with that. And Angus, you know, he's a great driver, he's raced in British GT for a number of years, but this is the sim, and the sim is kind of my world, and when I got out qualified by half a second, I knew my lap did not have half a second in it, maybe a tenth or two, don't get me wrong, but that's the limit of the McLaren. So it's going to make for an interesting race, and let's see what happened. Moving on then to the race, and towards the end of the warm-up lap, getting to the final corner, got heat in the brakes, tyres are in a decent window, and it's a simple case of send it into turn 1 and try and hang around the outside. I really wanted to get the jump on him here because I thought if I let him go, he's going to run off and I won't see him again until the end. So you can see approaching the line, we get a slightly better start when the lights go out. Better reaction time just fractionally, but it does make the difference going into turn 1. We're side by side. I managed to hold it round the outside, use the exit runoff to hold the position, and we do get into P1, which is perfect for what we need. You can see behind us there's a bit of carnage, but we're not focusing on that. Angus is right on our tail. You can see in the rear camera in the cockpit, you know, that BMW is pretty big at the best of times, but it looks massive, and clearly he's got more pace already. You can see he's got more pace at this early stage of the race. Going into the hairpin, he's right on it. You can just see the car behind us looks so much more compliant than our McLaren, where ours is kind of bouncing through the corners, his is just gliding through the corners. So you can see here he takes so much more curb than us at the chicane, and I don't know why, and I noticed it throughout the whole race, this little straight from the first chicane to the second chicane, his car was lightning quick, and you can see there going into the second chicane we make a bit of contact and it forces me to run off, and he still stays on the track, he's still behind us, and he gets a much better exit. We got dirt on our tyres going up towards Druids, and before we even get to Druids we don't get a chance to defend, he's already passed us. So the grunt of the BMW getting past us there. Going into Druids, I've got to let him go, there's nothing I can do, and my game plan has changed now, already towards the end of lap 1. He's got past us, we just need to stay with him, hope he makes a few mistakes, and yeah, see what we can do. We're still in second, it's not the end of the world, but it's not an ideal start. So we're about 14 minutes into the race at this point, and you can see we're starting to approach the GT4s for the first time, and Alton Park at the best of times is a narrow circuit. So GT4s around here, a very, very big challenge to navigate your way through them as quick as possible. We managed to do that Audi and the Aston Martin pretty easily. We get them on the straight. It's pretty good. Quite fortunate in that sense. And you can see Angus is about 2 seconds up the road now. So he's created a little gap, but you know, we're still in touching distance should he make a mistake or whatever. So this Camaro, it gets in the way through Island Bend, but you know, we lose half a second. It's not the end of the world. That's the thing with traffic. You've got to understand it's a bit give and take. So if you lose a bit of time here and there by being a bit unlucky on where you catch the traffic, it swings and roundabouts. It will go in your favour eventually, but you just got to stay calm and don't lose your head when it's not going well, because yeah, that's not going to help. If you crash into a GT4, get a penalty, get damage, that's when it starts to go a bit tits up. So you can see there, KTM there. Even, I mean, the GT4s could take an unholy amount of curb at all the corners, which was it was difficult because when you're behind the car, you tend to follow the line they're taking. But in the McLaren, obviously, if I took the line the GT4 was taking through a chicane, I'd probably end up spinning or something. So I just had to have that in the back of my head. I can't do what they're doing. But we clear those GT4s fairly easily, and we probably gained a couple of attempts on Angus there in that lap. However, that was just the start of it. So that was 5 or 6 GT4s we just passed. We're about to approach all of them now, the rest of the pack, the front runners. And you can see there we just get past the Merc at Island Bend. But as you approach the front running GT4s, it gets a bit more difficult because they're obviously quicker. So trying to pass a quicker car is a bit more difficult. They're probably a bit more safe, and they don't want to lose as much time because they're trying to get, you know, the win. And they do make it a bit easier to pass, but at the same time they're going quicker. So it's a bit of a weird balance. You can see Angus there, a couple of cars in front, 2.4 seconds ahead, so still very much within touching distance. We've got Michael O'Brien in 3rd place, about 8 seconds back at the moment. So we're looking good for a podium, but you know, we want to win. We're the gamer in a real racers race in the British GT Esports series. We want to win, and it's more difficult than I thought it was going to be. I'm not going to lie, because I think the car deficit we're facing in this particular race is quite big, and Angus has clearly worked out how to set up the BMW, how to drive it fast. His quali lap was really, really quick. So you know, we got our work cut out, that is for sure. So you can see there we passed a few GT4s in the exit at the final corner, approaching a GT3 who's had a very ropey start to the race, a Merc GT3 there, and obviously he's going to be a bit more difficult to pass because he's got more power and he's a GT3, but he's well off the pace. So we got the inside there. He's very nice, lets us through. The Camaro on the exit, no troubles there. We can just pass him on the straight, and you can see Angus ahead of us going through Island Bend. He's getting properly held up now in the GT4 traffic. So we're going to catch the end of the back of this Ginetta through the hairpin, but we don't really lose too much time there. But you'll see on the exit, we go to overtake him and he moves at the last minute, but it's difficult. Like, I'd say as a GT4 or a slower car in multi-class racing, you don't want to be doing that. You don't want to move at the last minute to get out of the way of someone. You just want to do what this guy does, stay on your line. I'm going to get past you anyway. I've got more power, better brakes. You know, I prefer it that way. I might lose a little bit more time because I have to go offline, but at least it's predictable, safe, and you can do it 9 times out of 10. So on the exit of the chicane, get past the Ginetta, no problem. So we're getting quite fortunate with the traffic at this stage of the race. 2 seconds now behind Angus, so we're gaining a bit of time through the traffic. And it's worth saying that in a normal race, 9 times out of 10, raw pace, Angus would win this race, hands down. He's got more pace than me at this circuit with the Beamer compared to the McLaren. But the traffic's a variable. It's difficult, especially at Alton Park. So we're using that to our advantage. We're just keeping the pressure on Angus, you know, stay within touching distance, because, you know, I have the view that will be in his head. If he sees me 2 seconds behind, he's not going to rest. He's more likely to make a mistake, and he's going to be more likely to go for a lunge on the GT4 that could backfire. So that's my thinking. Keep the pressure on. You can see we're coming up behind a BMW now, and he starts to go offline, but he gets out of the way very nicely. And then I think there's a few more GT4s left to go before we've cleared them all. And you can see we go at the outside of the McLaren there into the hairpin. He's still on the inside, so we've got to be careful. But once you pass the GT4s, you have a bit of a break from them. So I think we end up lapping them 4 or 5 times in the race. So it's quite nice when you're in clear air. But to be honest, in my situation, I want the GT4s. You know, that's my only chance of winning this race. Look, 1.4 seconds now to Angus. So we're catching him in the traffic. And there's a few more left. The GT4s as well, as I said, they take ridiculous amounts of curb. And it's so distracting, trying to not do what they're doing lap after lap. And it's the same thing when I'm behind Angus as well. You can see there, we have to kind of dummy that GT4 there. I didn't know what way it was going to go through Druids. And on the exit of Druids, we get the McLaren. Nice and easy, that overtake. I think there's 2 or 3 more GT4s, and then we've cleared the whole lot. So, yeah, the pit stop window in this race is between 25 and 35 minutes for both GT3s and GT4s, I believe. So I think the best way to play it is go as late as possible, because then you come out, you know, with as less or as little GT4s as possible to re-overtake. So I'm planning on going fairly late, towards the 35-minute mark, do my pit stop. No tyre change, 1 litre of fuel added. That's the mandatory pit stop. You've got to add 1 litre of fuel, and there's no point changing the tyres. The tyres don't degrade that badly, and I just thought, fuel the car for the whole race, add 1 litre of fuel, and send it, and go the whole way. And you can see there, I think this is the last GT4, one of the Rocket Motorsport Porsches, and we get a nice and good on the exit. Oh, there is one more actually, so it's a Porsche 1.2 in GT4 at the moment. And yeah, that's the strategy. We're going to go nice and late for the pit stop, and it should be around a 3-second stop, so nice and short. And I don't know what Angus is going to do, so you know, I'm just thinking purely about myself. What's the best strategy I can pull to put him under pressure? And that is literally the ethos of the race, is putting him under constant pressure over the course of the 60 minutes, because he might crack. You know, if I make a few mistakes, chill out, you know, let the gap increase lap after lap, that's going to make him feel comfortable, and nothing's going to happen. So it's going to be a simple first for him and second for me. So if I keep the pressure on, that won't happen, hopefully. Up the inside of the final GT4, and thank goodness we've got a clear track again, so we can kind of relax a little bit and just focus on our own pace. Halfway through the race then, so the first half of the race has been very solid. 4.9 seconds we've ended up being behind Fender in the Beamer, and you can see they're coming up to a GT4 in the final corner. Fortunately, it doesn't really get in the way, so we don't lose any time there, and we're going to box this lap. So there's one more lap we could have done before we reach the end of the pit stop window, but we're going a lap before, just to be a bit different, so we nail the pit entry, don't leave any time on the table in that process. Get to the pit stop, stop up on the jacks, a splash and dash, 1 litre of fuel, about 3 seconds or 3.2 seconds, and then we'll come straight back down and get on it. So I saw Angus didn't pit, so what I wanted to do was make sure I just do something a bit different, put him under pressure. He's going to be thinking, what am I doing? Why am I boxing a lap earlier? It might force him into an error. I just didn't want to do the same thing. If I mirror him, it's probably going to be very plain sailing, but yeah. I don't really get the undercut effect as well because I'm not changing tyres, but it's still doing something different. We come out behind a GT3 Porsche, so it's not ideal because, yeah, we're going to be slightly held up on this lap, but at the same time, it's not the end of the world. We've got 1 car of traffic. It's not as if we come out behind 6 cars. And yeah, let's see where Angus rejoins. Did we gain or lose time? Well, as we come through the first corner of the next lap, you'll see rejoining the circuit or leaving the pits, Angus Fender is not that far ahead anymore. So we've gained a couple of seconds, which is unexpected. I don't know why. Maybe he didn't nail the pit stop process. Maybe he was a bit conservative on the pit entry, overshot his pit box slightly. Who knows? But regardless, we've caught up 3 seconds, maybe even slightly more. So this has really got me in the mood now, where I know over the second half of this race, the McLaren, notoriously at any circuit in the race, very good on its tyres. So we haven't changed tyres. The tyre wear will come into it towards the end of the race. McLaren is strong in that area. The Beamer, I'm not so sure. So although he has a pace advantage, the longer this race goes on, in my head, I'm thinking it's going to start to swing towards me. We're still right behind him halfway through the race. So we've managed to get past the worst point of the race, the first half of the race, where the Beamer's pace advantage is really going to hit home. And yeah, there's about 25 minutes left to go, so not even 5 or 6 laps. We're less than a second behind Angus now, probably just about a second going into the second chicane on this particular lap. And the pace, it doesn't look as strong as earlier, so you can tell his tyre wear is obviously a bit worse than ours. And on the exit of the final part of the second chicane, he goes wide, the curb drags him off. And there we go, we're right on his backside now. We're back in the race properly. And he's making mistakes. He's not comfortable, that's clear to see. And he's got dirt on his tyres, so for these next few corners he's going to be a bit off the pace. Part of me was thinking, do we pounce now? Do we just get really aggressive, trying to make the move, get it done early before we can start to scamper away again? But I don't think he's got the pace anymore. So I'm going to bide my time. There's still 20 minutes or so left of the race. Yeah, this I didn't expect this after qualifying, I've got to be honest. So a couple of laps later then, and we're coming up to more GT4 traffic. We're lapping them again. So we're behind an Audi going through Island Bend, up the outside, and no problems there. He's behind more GT4 traffic in the hairpin, and it's worth saying that P3 and P4, all those other guys are 40-50 seconds behind us. So it's really a two-horse race for the win. We're guaranteed the top two really, unless something mental happens. So it's good. P2 would be good in this race given the car, but the win is definitely on the cards. And you can see there, going into the second chicane, he's approaching more traffic. So he's got two cars ahead of him, a BMW and a Porsche. We've got a McLaren in between us. And on the exit of the second chicane, you can see again, like the last lap or the couple of laps ago, he makes another mistake. We're closer to take advantage of it. We use the grass on the right hand side to get the move done. He leaves us just about enough room. Very hard racing, but that's how it goes sometimes. And we get the move done going into Druids. We're behind a BMW and a Porsche, and we are very fortunate. We get them on the straight and we're into P1. So, you know, we're in the lead for the first time since lap 1. And it's tough because he's still got the pace. He's just making a few errors. So if he stops making those errors, he's going to be all over us for the final 15 minutes of the race, I think there is. So yeah, into P1, and I just need to keep a cool head and drive cleanly and use the traffic to make a little bit of a gap, and let's see if I can do that. And so half a lap later, we're coming up behind a GT4 Porsche going into the second chicane. You can see Angus is still hovering about half a second behind us. He brakes very late going into the second chicane, almost makes contact with our rear, goes into the grass, and overall not much has really changed. We've gained a few tenths. He's got dirt on his tyres, but both got away with that one. And again, another sign he's not comfortable. He's making mistakes. His tyre wear is affecting him. Maybe the length of the race is getting to him, I don't know. But for whatever reason, he's not as comfortable as in the first half of the race. I know that at this point. I'm calm, composed. I know what I've got to do. And there's not long left of the race now, so I just need to keep on plugging away. And he's going to make more mistakes, I can feel it. A couple of laps later then, going into Island Bend, and Angus is still right behind us, so he's had an off and whatever, but he's still got the pace to stick with us, no problem. Through the hairpin, right on our tail now. We've got a bit of traffic ahead, but it's a GT3, so there'll be a little while before we fully catch him. And going into the first chicane, we get a decent exit. It's a bit oversteery. The rear, the tyres are starting to go off, so the car's becoming a bit more rear limited, but at the same time, Angus gets a very good exit alongside us going into the second chicane. There's a bit of contact on the entry. He goes off. I manage to stay on the circuit. He comes back in front of me, and we make contact. But again, like the situation is the same. He's still the same gap behind us. I didn't get any damage, I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure if he did or not. It wouldn't make sense if he did and I didn't, because we both had the same kind of contact. But yeah, very, very strange incident. I think, to be fair, when I came across slightly towards the end of that straight, that might have net-coded into contact, which instigated the incident, because the cars, when they make contact on this game, they do go a bit crazy. But not ideal, but overall, nothing's changed. He's still behind me, and that incident is going to be imperative to the end of the race result. So keep a note of that in your head, because we'll get back to this later. But let's see what happens throughout the rest of the race. And as we approach lap 31 of the race, still behind the Lamborghini, who we caught up, then we had the incident, we dropped back, and now we've caught up again to lap him. Going into turn 1, nice late apex, but if you look in our rear view camera, Angus gets a bit of a moment mid-corner, snaps and runs wide on the exit, so that's really good for us, gives us a little bit more of a buffer to extend the gap, and we're behind the Lamborghini going through turn 3. On the exit, he lets us pass, very, very good for us. However, for him, you know, as I said, I talked about earlier, swings and roundabouts with the traffic. So initially he had good luck with the traffic. He got past them quite easily, whereas now you can see he's being held up and he made that mistake. So at this stage of the race where there's only a few minutes left to go, that is crucial. So the pressure kind of gets taken off us a little bit. We can stretch our legs. He's got to worry about that GT3 traffic, and yeah, that, to be honest, that instigated the gap getting bigger and bigger and bigger towards the end of the race. I think after that he started to push a bit more. A few more mistakes crept in. The tyre wear on the BMW probably isn't as good as on the McLaren, and it resulted in being quite a big gap towards the end of the race. And you'll see on the final lap just how big it is. And across the line, going into the final lap of the race, lap 37 out of 37. So we have a nice big gap behind us now, where Angus has been caught up with traffic and there was a few errors. We've had a very solid, clean end to the race. 6.3 second gap now. So in that previous lap he lost like 3 seconds. Not sure what happened there. But it's been a hell of a race. I mean, first of all, Angus was insanely quick in quali. Insanely quick in the first half of the race. It was one of the toughest races I've ever had in ACC, so I'm glad I could share it with you. It's proof that if you don't have the raw pace, or the car isn't fully underneath you at a certain track, the BOP is not in your favour. So there's no doubt that the BMW was quicker than the McLaren at this track, but if you are clean with the traffic, you're constantly putting someone under pressure, you don't make the mistakes, it can end well for you. And it's racing, anything can happen, and it's not always plain sailing. And 9 times out of 10 Angus would win this race with the pace he's got, but this was that one occasion where mistakes crept in. There was various scenarios and we managed to beat him on track. Now across the line we do finish first, but what I will say is that incident I told you to keep a mental note of earlier, for whatever reason they deemed it worthy of a 30-second penalty, the British GT stewards, and we end up finishing second. But I don't care. In my eyes, we won this race. We won it by over 7 seconds as well. The incident was not worth 30 seconds. I think it was their way of putting a little BOP on the championship, but regardless of why they deemed it 30 seconds, it's everyone's subject to their own opinion. And it's worth saying, please let me know down in the comments below what you thought of that particular incident. But in my eyes, we won the race, and we did on track, and we didn't win it in the fastest car. So, in fact, I'd go as far as saying the McLaren was one of the slowest cars around this track. So, very happy with the performance in this race. I hope it taught you something, or I hope you enjoyed just watching it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. One of my most enjoyable races I've had on the game, or in general. And that was the first round of the British GT Esports Series. At this moment of making the video, there's been 2 rounds. I won the second race. It was quite a boring race, so I probably won't show it on here. But make sure you tune into my Twitch channel to watch the remaining races Sundays in the evening about 7 PM UK time. But thank you for watching this video. Give it a thumbs up, sub up to the channel if you did enjoy it. And yeah, until the next video, I'll see you soon.